So, very good evening, friends. Uh, so, let us continue with this chapter 5 on social audit and social auditor. We were somewhere here on evidence building. The social auditor should plan and perform a social audit with an attitude of professional skepticism to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence of the implementation of the social program in the field. So, following are the points to be considered while building evidence. When designing and performing procedures, the practitioner would also need to consider the relevance and reliability of the information to be used as evidence. If evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with that obtained from another, because in the course of a social audit, he might be obtaining various evidences. And if there are different sources and evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with that obtained from another source, suppose he undertakes a sample survey. Now, sample survey gave some results, and then he collected data from some other source also, maybe some published source, and that data hints at some other conclusion. So, if evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with that obtained from the other, or the social auditor has doubts about the reliability of information to be used as an evidence, then in that case, he also needs to consider the relevance and the reliability of the information to be used as evidence. Because it means there is something wrong with the evidence itself. Achha, some people are waiting outside maybe. अच्छा इनका फोन आ रहा था. So sorry Chako ji and Sarika ji, I made you co-host. So please keep on admitting people.
Okay.
So we were somewhere here on evidence building, that the social auditor should plan and perform a social audit with an attitude of professional skepticism to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence of the implementation of the social program in the field. So following are the points to be considered while building evidence. First is, when designing and performing procedures, the practitioner would also need to consider the relevance and reliability of the information to be used as evidence. If evidence obtained from one source is different, is inconsistent with that obtained from another, or the social auditor has doubts about the reliability of the information. So what are the circumstances in which the auditor should consider the relevance and reliability of the information to be used as evidence? When there is inconsistency between the evidences obtained from various sources, or the social auditor doubts about the reliability of the information to be used as evidence. The social auditor should determine what changes or additions to the procedures are necessary. So in such a scenario, when there is inconsistency between the evidence obtained, or there is doubt regarding the reliability of the information, so naturally he would like to change the procedures. So now it is, he has to determine that what changes or additions to the procedures are necessary to resolve the matter, and should consider the effect of the matter, if any, on other aspects of the engagement. The social auditor should accumulate uncorrected misstatements identified during the engagement. This is another job, that he has to accumulate all the uncorrected misstatements identified during the engagement, other than those that are clearly trivial, and determine the effect of the misstatement on the assurance report. The social auditor should request from the appropriate parties a written representation. So it is some sort of management representation, that it is provided the social auditor with all information of which the appropriate parties is aware, that is relevant to the engagement, confirming the measurement or evaluation of the underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria, including that all relevant matters are reflected in the subject matter confirmation. So, first of all, he has to obtain appropriate written representation from the parties that whatever information they had parted with that information that was relevant for the engagement. Second is confirming the measurement or evaluation of the underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria, including that all relevant matters are reflected in the subject matter information. If in addition to required representation, the social auditor determines that it is necessary to obtain one or more written representations to support other evidence relevant to the subject matter information, the social auditor should request such other written representation. So first of all, a written representation that is relevant to the engagement. Second, confirming the measurement or evaluation of the underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria, including that all relevant matters are reflected in the subject matter confirmation. So first of all, he has to obtain confirmation. Then he has to test that confirmation that all these relevant matter is included therein. Third is, in case he feels necessary, he may obtain one or more written representations to support other evidence relevant to the subject matter. The social auditor should request such other written representations. So when written representations relate to matters that are material to the subject matter information, the social auditor should evaluate their reasonableness. Now, once he has obtained all those written representations, now he has to evaluate all such representations. So he has to evaluate their reasonableness and consistency with other evidence obtained, including other representations, and consider whether those making the representations can be expected to be well informed on the particular matters. The date of the written representation should be as near as practicable to, but not after the date of the assurance report. So up to this we had covered yesterday. Now description of applicable criteria. The social auditor would need to evaluate whether the subject matter information adequately refers to or describes the applicable criteria. The description of the applicable criteria advises intended users of the framework on which the subject matter information is based and is particularly important when there are significant differences between various criteria regarding how particular matters may be treated in the subject matter information. Now, first of all, he has to see whether the subject matter information adequately refers to or describes the applicable criteria. The description of the applicable criteria advises intended users of the framework on which the subject matter information is based and is particularly important when there are significant differences between various criteria regarding how particular matters may be treated in the subject matter information. So what are the characteristics of audit evidence? So competence signifies the reliability of an audit evidence. If the social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, a scope limitation exists. So what are the circumstances in which scope limitation exists? If the social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, and the social auditor should express a qualified opinion or conclusion or disclaim an opinion, conclusion, or withdraw from the engagement where withdrawal is possible under applicable law or regulation as appropriate. So relevance means pertinence of the information to provide an opinion. So there could be circumstances when the social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. So in this case, naturally scope limitation exists, and either he should, in such cases, issue a qualified opinion, or he should refrain from expressing any opinion, and he may even consider withdrawal from the engagement. The social auditor should evaluate the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained in the context of the engagement, and if necessary in the circumstances, attempt to obtain further evidence. The social auditor should consider all relevant evidence, regardless of whether it appears to corroborate or to contradict the measurement or evaluation of the underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria. Now, he is collecting various types of evidences, the social auditor. Now, they may either corroborate each other or they may contradict each other. But he should go on collecting all the evidence which is relevant. If the practitioner is unable to obtain necessary further evidence, the social auditor should consider the implication for the social auditor's opinion or conclusion. So sufficiency describes whether the information obtained is enough to provide an opinion, judgment, or conclusion. So there should be sufficient evidence. The social auditor should form an opinion or a conclusion about whether the subject matter is free of any material misstatement. So the opinion, uh, he has to form an opinion or conclusion that whether the subject matter information is free of material misstatement. In forming that opinion conclusion, the social auditor should consider the conclusion regarding the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained and an evaluation of whether uncorrected misstatements are material individually or in the aggregate. Because we have read earlier that he has to accumulate all the uncorrected misstatements. Now, if all the misstatements are compiled together, then whether individually or in the aggregate, they uh, are sufficient or appropriate for the evidence obtained. And now he has to evaluate them. If he is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, a scope limitation exists. And the social auditor should express a qualified opinion. So what are the circumstances in which scope limitation exists, or when he should refrain from making an opinion, or whether what are the circumstances in which he should issue a qualified opinion? So they are when there is insufficiency of information and when there is incorrectness of information. Now, audit conclusions. So, audit conclusions should address issues such as the following: the extent of conformity with the social audit criteria, achievement of audit objectives, coverage of audit scope, and fulfillment of audit criteria. If specified by the audit plan, audit conclusions can lead to recommendations for improvement or future auditing activities. So audit conclusions, they review the social audit findings and any other appropriate information collected during the audit against the audit objectives, agree on the audit conclusions, taking into account the uncertainty inherent in the audit process, prepare recommendations if specified by the audit plan, discuss audit follow-up or as applicable. So audit conclusions basically refer to conclusion drawn based on the audit and the further follow-up if it is required. So two audit opinions can be made by a social auditor based on the assessment of social impact. First is the unqualified opinion or unmodified opinion known as clean report. So this implies that there is no material mismanagement and there is sufficient and appropriate audit evidence obtained. And qualified opinion or modified opinion when the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. So there can be only two situations. In the first situation, he will be able to gather all the appropriate evidence and he will issue a clean report. And second could be the scenario when he is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, and in that case he will issue either a qualified opinion or he will refrain from expressing an opinion. Now this accounting system and internal control. So while performing the social audit, the auditor should obtain the basic understanding of the accounting system by obtaining and reading the following documents: accounting manual including SOP, standard operating procedures. The accounting manual contains the description of accounting system and relevant accounting policies and procedures designed for the various processes such as income, expenditure, cash and bank, fixed assets, etc. So they can ask you a question on this. Accounting manual contains which of the following? Chart of accounts. The chart of accounts contains the list of accounts which are there on the accounting system. So chart of accounts is basically description of the various ledger accounts so that there is uniformity in maintaining accounts. Cost center. So whenever you want to debit or credit a particular account, so you have to refer to the chart of accounts, and only out of the list of accounts which are there in chart of accounts, you have to choose one or the other account. Then cost center details. So cost center details is the list of code entered into the system to identify the cost related to various specific projects. So accounting manual including SOP, chart of accounts, cost center details. So cost center details is the list of code entered into the system to identify the cost related to various specific projects. And then delegation of authority matrix. So this matrix contains the details of roles and responsibilities. So it is some sort of organization chart of each level to ensure smooth functioning and approval of transactions by authorized persons within the organization. So basically, this is important that who can authorize what type of transactions. So transactions below a particular amount or transactions above a particular amount might have to be signed by a particular person. So this is given in delegation of authority matrix. And then IT controls manual. So it contains the details regarding the IT controls in relation to accounting system, such as access controls, physical and environment security, logical security, backup and recovery, etc. So these are the 5 things which are covered in this accounting system and internal control. Then social audit report. The social audit team leader should report the audit conclusions in accordance with the audit program. The audit report should provide a complete, accurate, concise, and a clear record of the audit, and it should include or refer to the following. First is a title that clearly indicates the report is an independent audit report. Then social audit report is ordinarily addressed to the engaging party. But in some cases, there may be other intended users. So normally it is addressed to the engaging party. So whosoever is the appointing authority or whosoever is the engaging party, it is normally addressed to that person. Then audit objectives, audit scope, particularly identification of the organization, priority, and the functions or processes audited. So this is also included in social audit report. Then identification of the audit client, identification of audit team, and auditees participants in the audit. Dates and locations where the audit activities were conducted, audit criteria, audit findings and related evidence, audit conclusions, a statement on the degree to which the audit criteria have been fulfilled, and any unresolved diverging opinions between the audit team and the auditee. The audit report can also include or refer to the following as appropriate. First, so all these things up to 12 are mandatory. Then it says the other thing, the audit report can also include or refer to the following as appropriate. First is the audit plan, including time schedule, a summary of the audit process, including any obstacles encountered that may decrease the reliability of the audit conclusions, confirmation that the audit objectives have been achieved within the audit scope in accordance with the audit plan, any areas within the audit scope not covered, including any issues of availability of evidence, resources, or confidentiality with related justifications, a summary covering the audit conclusions and the main audit findings that support them, good practices identified, agreed action plan follow-up if any, a statement of the confidential nature of the contents, any implications for the audit program or subsequent audits, a statement that the engagement was performed in accordance with SAS framework or as any other framework as applicable. A statement that the social auditor complies with the independence and other ethical requirements of the code of conduct applicable to the social auditor issued by the self-regulatory organization or SEBI. So these are the various contents of the social audit report. So it should include or refer to the following things. So these are the 16 points which the social audit report may contain. Up to 12 points, they are mandatory, some sort of mandatory, but from 13 onwards, they may include they or refer to the following. Now, challenges related to social auditing. So what are the challenges? So social audit happens in a dynamic, multidimensional, and an interconnected framework. So the following highlight the challenges related to social auditing. First is capturing softer data can be challenging while capturing the social impact, because you are dealing with the social impact. So capturing this softer data can be challenging. For example, this confidence, self-esteem, sense of agency, the social auditor should ascertain that the AIR has used appropriate methods to capture outcome for such indicators. It can be addressed by using proxy indicators, PESA scale, or narrative numeracy methods. So these are the various types of methods. Social auditor needs to be skilled and knowledgeable to trace the materiality of data to the impact indicator reported. Then capturing social.
Sir, what is this PESA scale?
These are the various types of indicators. Actually, because you have to capture softer data, so these could be the various methods of getting or capturing the softer data. So we'll research into this further and we'll come out with to you.
Okay, sir.
So proxy indicators, PESA scale, or narrative numeracy methods. Social auditor needs to be skilled but it seems that these are some of the methods which can be used for capturing softer data. Suppose you want to judge the self-esteem, whether there is an increase in self-esteem. So how will you judge it? Because it is a relatively, you can say, it is not so easily measurable. So there must be some indicators for using that. And so these could be the various methods. So proxy indicators, PESA scale, or narrative numeracy methods. So we'll dig deep into it. Then capturing social and economic impact is a tough task. Organizations will need refined documentation tools and data analysis methods to arrive at conclusions. Because we are dealing with the social audit. So these are not finance figures which are easily captured. So first is you have to say check the self-esteem, confidence, sense of agency. Then you have to capture the social and economic impact. So that is also a tough task. So these are the challenges which are related to social auditing. So capturing social and economic impact is a tough task. Organizations will need refined documentation tools and data analysis methods to arrive at conclusions. Lack of appropriate indicators which are traceable might be a challenge. So this can be mitigated by thinking through the data needs that need to be captured while at the project design stage. So hiring the services of a qualified professional may assist. The social auditor needs to be well versed with the reporting framework or tools for the same. So first is capturing software data. Second is capturing social and economic impact. So we may hire services of a qualified professional. And the social auditor needs to be well versed with reporting frameworks or tools for the same. Third is traceability of certain stakeholder groups. For example, an intervention for adult learners, nomads may be difficult. So primary evidence or audit trail for such groups will be an impediment. Suppose you are working on, say, people who keep moving from one place to another. So there you may find difficult interacting with such people. So this could also be an issue. Then access to appropriate data in a user-friendly manner is necessary to draw conclusions. Organizations may hide or withhold data that may be counterintuitive. So even organizations, they may hide or withhold data that may be counterintuitive. So this is also a social audit challenge. Then overclaiming of impact needs to be addressed. Assigning roles to intervening variables, capturing quality of life indicators by stakeholders, and using dead weights can avoid overclaiming. So there could be a situation where there are overclaims by the stakeholders that, okay, we have got this much advantage by implementing this program. So by using dead weights, you can avoid this overclaiming. Then multidimensional projects or implementation will have convergence of sectors. Example is a district or state rural health intervention will have convergence of sanitation, nutrition, behavior change, communication, primary health services. So there could be convergence of various sectors. So social audits of this complexity and scale will make the social audit process lengthy and cumbersome. So this may pose a challenge to the rigors of the audit. So lack of social auditors who are equipped to conduct audits as per the social audit standards, which are aligned to the sustainable development goals. So this may be a challenge to have accredited social auditors and expert in all thematic sectors. So these are some of the challenges which are related to social auditing, because we are dealing with something which is not easily measurable. So these could be the issues when we undertake social auditing. Auditors may not be available. Capturing software data may be a challenging task. Capturing social and economic impact is a tough task. Then we might find it difficult to interact with certain types of people like nomads, etc. Then access to appropriate data in a user-friendly manner is necessary to draw conclusions. So organization, there may be withholding of data by the organizations. There could be overclaiming of impact. And in case of multi-dimensional projects, so implementation will have convergence of sectors. For example, is district or state rural health intervention will have convergence of sanitation, nutrition, behavior change, communication, primary health services. And if you want to isolate one impact from the other, so it might be difficult. So these are some of the challenges which are related to social auditing. Now let us see the questions on this fifth chapter. These are the questions. So which of the following is not a feature of social audit? Evaluating the impact caused on the society. So this is a feature. Second is issuing an opinion on the state of financial affairs. So this is not a feature because he is issuing an opinion on the state of social impact, basically. Being a multi-perspective in nature and adopting the triple bottom.
सर ये क्या
line approach.
था ट्रिपल बॉटम लाइन अप्रोच?
एक मिनट. एक मिनट. So triple bottom line theory, it expands conventional business. ये Google से पढ़ रहा हूं मैं. So triple bottom line theory, it expands the conventional business success metrics to include an organization's contribution to social well-being, environmental health, and a just economy.
अच्छा, तीन चीजें होगी, सोशल हेल्थ, इकोनॉमी एंड एनवायरनमेंट.
So these bottom line categories are often referred to as the 3 P's: people, planet, and prosperity. ये है basically.
पीपल,
People, planet, and prosperity.
अच्छा,
People तो हो गए social well-being, और
हाँ,
planet हो गया आपका environmental health, और
ये
prosperity हो गई just economy.
ये तीन पीस है ट्रिपल बॉटम लाइन अप्रोच.
हाँ.
ठीक है, थैंक यू.
क्योंकि we are talking of sustainability. So sustainability means making balanced and efficient choices among environment, economic, and social values. तो तीन चीजें हैं. We have to take care of the environment. भाई जो भी चीज है उससे environment भी खराब नहीं हो हमारा, जो भी हम कर रहे हैं, है ना. ये नहीं कि भाई एक चीज को हम सुधारने जा रहे हैं तो दूसरी चीज खराब हो जाए. इकोनॉमी पर भी उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट है और सोशल वैल्यूज का भी है. तो दीज आर द 3 बॉटम लाइन ऑफ सस्टेनेबिलिटी. अच्छा, both quantitative and qualitative indicators are important in case of social audit. अच्छा, dash is the rational method for reaching a reliable and reproducible audit. So evidence-based approach is the rational method for reaching a reliable and reproducible audit conclusions in a systematic audit process. Then having which of the following implies that a social auditor attains, maintains, and updates professional competence in related technical, professional, and business domains. So professional competence and due care implies that a social auditor attains, maintains, and updates professional competence in a related technical, professional, and business domains.
पर
बाकी
इसमें मतलब ये प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर एंड प्रोफेशनल कॉम्पिटेंस में थिन लाइन डिफरेंस है, तो इसका कैसे देखना पड़ेगा?
देखिए कॉम्पिटेंस जो है ना, कॉम्पिटेंस तो बेसिकली क्या है कि इट माइट रेफर टू द टेक्निकल क्वालिफिकेशन, प्रोफेशनल कॉम्पिटेंस, और प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर इट रेफर्स टू बेसिकली दी अदर एट्रीब्यूट्स, प्रोफेशनल एट्रीब्यूट्स, कि भाई ठीक है यू आर ए पर्सन ऑफ इंटेग्रिटी, इस तरह से। तो बेसिकली वो थोड़े सॉफ्ट स्किल्स हैं प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर में, कॉम्पिटेंस में थोड़े टेक्निकल स्किल्स हैं।
अगर यहाँ पर टेक्निकल ना होता, मतलब फिर आता प्रोफेशनल कॉम्पिटेंस रिलेटिंग टू द प्रोफेशनल एंड बिजनेस डोमेन्स, तब क्या आता? तब हम प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर करते क्या?
वो तो क्वेश्चन के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि क्वेश्चन क्या है। प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर मैं तो जहां तक समझता हूं कि प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर मींस सम सॉफ्ट स्किल्स, सॉफ्ट ट्रेड्स। प्रोफेशनल बिहेवियर में क्या आएगा कि यू आर एन ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप ऑफ पर्सन, है ना। और प्रोफेशनली कॉम्पिटेंट क्या है, दैट यू आर हैविंग द डिजायर्ड डिग्री, यू आर हैविंग द डिजायर्ड टेक्निकल स्किल, टेक्निकल कॉम्पिटेंस, टेक्निकल क्वालिफिकेशन।
ठीक है सर।
बाकी तो ऐसा है कि बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन हमने किए ही हैं चैप्टर 5 पर, सोनी चाकू जी ने जो पूरा चैप्टर दिया था, एंड वी विल हैव मोर क्वेश्चंस ऑन चैप्टर 5। तो बिफोर वी मूव ऑन टू चैप्टर 6, चैप्टर 5 पे कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछ लें, एक बार रिवीजन हो जाएगा चैप्टर 5 का। 10 मिनट में रिवीजन कर लेते हैं, फिर चैप्टर 6 पे चलते हैं, या चैप्टर 6 पर चलते हैं पहले, ठीक है ना, क्योंकि ये काफी रिवीजन तो हो ही चुका, कल भी हमने किया था, तो कल करेंगे इसको। फिर चैप्टर 6 वाला जो है ना, कल चैप्टर 5 का भी रिवीजन कर लेंगे। हाँ, we can start with chapter 6 now.
I think it is important. Standards.
Right. Social audit standards framework. This is a very important topic. जैसे वो गाना ना, जिसका मुझे था इंतजार, जिसके लिए दिल था बेकरार, वो घड़ी आ गई। तो social audit standards framework, this is very important, and I think then chapter 7. Then chapter 7 will be on social impact assessment. So these chapter 6 and 7 are very important. And then in chapter 8, there are case studies, I think. Right? Chapter 8 is social impact assessment. So chapter 6 and chapter 7. So chapter 6 talks of social audit standards framework. So what is the social audit standard? So social audit framework developed by ICAI, it provides a social auditor guidance for conducting a social audit. The social audit framework is applicable from the dates of its hosting on the ICAI website. Social audit framework does not cover any elements of a financial audit or review, which may be covered by relevant auditing review standards. Okay? So this does not contain any element of financial audit or review, and this provides guidance for conducting a social audit. So what is the list of social audit standards? So there are 16 social audit standards. So 100 to 1600. So 100 refers to eradicating hunger, poverty, malnutrition, and inequality. MI phone, as I normally refer to. ऐसे 100 क्या है? MI phone है. M से क्या बना? Malnutrition. I से क्या बन गया? Inequality. P से क्या बन गया? Poverty. H से क्या बन गया? Hunger. ठीक है, तो MI phone अगर आप याद करो तो ऐसे 100 याद हो गए। इसी तरह से हमें सारे याद कर लेने। ऐसे 200 क्या बना? Promoting health care, including mental health and sanitation, and making available safe drinking water. बट ऐसा आई डोंट थिंक कि वो ऐसा पूछेगा कि ऐसे 100 रिलेट्स टू व्हाट, या पॉवर्टी से कौन सा स्टैंडर्ड करता है। तो इतना याद करना इतना आसान भी नहीं है, बट विल ट्राई अभी इसको इस तरह से याद कर सकें कि 200 में क्या है, 300 में। सो 200 फर्स्ट 100 में तो क्या है, ये 100 एक तो याद कर ही सकते हो कम से कम कि भाई 100 में क्या है, ठीक है। देन 200 में क्या हो गया आपका? सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वाटर और हेल्थ केयर और सैनिटेशन है। देन 300 है आपका एजुकेशन, एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी एंड लाइवलीहुड, ठीक है। 400 है फिर आपका जेंडर equality, empowerment of women and LGBTQIA plus communities. 500 है आपका environmental sustainability, climatic change, etc. 600 है आपका protection of national heritage, art and culture. 700 है आपका rural sports, normally recognized sports. 800 है आपका supporting incubators of social enterprises. 900 है supporting other platforms that strengthen the non-profit ecosystem in fundraising and capacity building. फिर 1000 है promoting livelihoods for rural and urban poor, including enhancing income of small and marginal farmers and workers in the non-farm sector. फिर 1100 में आपका है slum area development, affordable housing and other interventions to build sustainable and resilient cities. 1200 क्या है disaster management including relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction activities. 1300 है promotion of financial inclusion. 1400 है facilitating access to land and property assets for disadvantaged communities. 1500 है bridging the digital divide in internet and mobile phone access, addressing issues of misinformation and data protection. और फिर आपका लास्ट आपका आ गया 1600 promoting welfare of migrants and displaced persons. तो ये हमारे 16 स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं, 16 सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स. स्कोप क्या है? स्कोप द सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड इट शुड बी अप्लाइड व्हाइल कंडक्टिंग ए सोशल ऑडिट. द रेलेवेंट SAS thematic area should be chosen according to the activity social project which is being audited. ठीक है, तो जो आप जैसे अगर क्लाइमेटिक चेंज से रिलेटेड कोई सोशल ऑडिट कर रहे हो तो आपको कौन सा स्टैंडर्ड देखना पड़ेगा? क्लाइमेटिक चेंज से रिलेटेड आपको देखना पड़ेगा, ये यहाँ पर था ये 500 एनवायरमेंटल सस्टेनेबिलिटी. तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए भाई कौन सा स्टैंडर्ड आपको देखना है, वो सारा उसमें लिखा ही हुआ है. The social project may be for a social enterprise, for profit or not for profit. ठीक है, and may also have appropriate application to other related functions of social auditor. तो दोनों के लिए हो सकता है, सोशल एंटरप्राइज के लिए भी हो सकता है और नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट के लिए भी हो सकता है. Compliance with SAS. Compliance with SAS is a mandatory requirement for social audit conducted for social enterprises listed on social stock exchange. So it is mandatory. ठीक है, social auditors should ensure that guidance available in SAS are followed while conducting social audits. If for any reason a social auditor is not able to perform a social audit in accordance with the SAS, his report should draw attention to the material departures therefrom. ठीक है, तो जो material departures है वो उसका mention होना चाहिए आपकी audit report के अंदर. Social auditors are expected to follow SAS in the social audit commencing on or after the effective date specified in the SAS. तो वो जो सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स में इफेक्टिव डेट स्पेसिफाइड है उसके हिसाब से आपको फॉलो करना है. ठीक है, नाउ द सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स फ्रेमवर्क. ICAI सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स फ्रेमवर्क provides guidance for the elements and objectives of a social audit performed by social auditors. It provides a frame of reference for social auditors when performing social audits, responsible party, engaging party, and other stakeholders who are the intended users of social audit report. ठीक है, SAS framework does not itself establish standards or provide specific requirements for the performance of specific thematic area, for example, poverty, climatic change, health, etc. तो ये क्या है, जो SAS framework है, it does not itself establish standards or provide specific requirements for the performance of specific thematic area. ठीक है, then applicability of SAS framework. Social audit standard framework will be applicable from the dates of its hosting on ICAI website. So reference to the ICAI social audit standard framework is mandatory while conducting social audits, but all the three institutes, they will come with their SAS framework. ठीक है, वो more or less similar ही होंगे क्योंकि these are based on the sustainable development goals. सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स हमारे 17 है, 17th इज रेजुलेटरी. ठीक है ना, तो 16 के हिसाब से इन्होंने 16 फ्रेमवर्क बना दी, बस ये है. तो सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स. हाँ
Sir, as of now, we are not supposed to refer the other standards of ICSA and ICAI post, right? We just stick on this NISM standards only, right?
No, it is not like that.
Other
अभी तो देखो कोई भी इफेक्टिव तो है नहीं, कोई भी इफेक्टिव नहीं है इनमें से.
हाँ,
अभी तो सोशल
only
स्टॉक
ICAI
एक्सचेंज, सोशल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज ही बना नहीं अभी सोशल स्टॉक
हाँ।
एक्सचेंज बना कहाँ इंडिया में? अभी नहीं बना कुछ भी, ये सब थ्योरी में चल रहा है अभी। हाँ, अभी तो
No,
इनका
no, I am
इफेक्टिव
asking for the examination point of view, just to refer this only, not to the other standards, right? For the examination purpose.
नहीं, ऐसा भी नहीं है, बिकॉज ICSI दे हैव आल्सो एक्चुअली यू हैव टू सी द इफेक्टिव डेट कि वहां पर इफेक्टिव डेट क्या है। तो वहां पर इफेक्टिव
Okay.
डेट है कोई? आई डोंट थिंक देयर इज एनी सच इफेक्टिव डेट। तो जो भी लेटेस्ट सिनेरियो होगा उसके हिसाब से वी हैव टू डू इट। I think as of now,
Oh.
because there are standards promulgated by ICAI and ICSI, so both can be referred to.
Yeah.
Actually, it will
Okay.
depend upon the SRO with which you are empaneled, basically. उस तरह से चलेगा। एंड दे आर सिमिलर, उसमें कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई उसका कोई स्टैंडर्ड अलग होगा, इसका अलग होगा। बट ये है कि ऑल, बिकॉज ऑल कंसिडर देमसेल्व्स एज रेगुलेटर, तीनों ही रेगुलेटर है ना, एक सिंगल रेगुलेटर तो है नहीं भाई। या तो जैसे इन केस ऑफ इंसॉल्वेंसी IBPI is this regulator, IBPI is issuing regulations, है ना। But here, because all these are all three self-regulatory organizations, so they are coming out with their own standards.
Okay. Okay.
Like you can see this like a code of conduct, because in code of conduct every institute has got its own code of conduct. So similar is the procedure is. So every institute, every SRO, they are coming out with their own social audit standards, but they are more or less similar. कोई फर्क नहीं होता। हाँ, so social audit standard framework will be applicable from the dates of its hosting on the ICAI website. So reference to the ICAI social audit standard framework is mandatory while conducting social audits. So social audit standards contain guidance on performance of thematic areas for social audit engagements. The appropriate social audit standard thematic area may be referred for relevant social indicators. ठीक है। अच्छा, नीचे क्या लिखता है? नीचे लिखता है SAS are the area specific thematic social audit standards. Now objective, ये objective क्या है? The objective of ICAI social audit standard framework is to provide guidance for social audit of projects, programs, project-based activities of social enterprises registered or listed on the social stock exchange, and social audit of projects, programs, project-based activities of any other organization, and to provide related guidance on matters relating to preparation of social audit report in accordance with the social auditor's findings based on the social audit procedures performed and evidence obtained. Now, scope of SAS. The framework applies to social audit, that is social impact assessment of project or program of social enterprise to be conducted by the social auditors using the principles given in the SAS. The framework may also be applied to other engagements conducted by a social auditor, for example, CSR impact assessment as required under the company's corporate social responsibility policy amendment rules or any other similar assignment. Social auditors and the reporting entity may agree to apply the principles of this framework to an engagement when there are no intended users other than the reporting entity. In such situation, the social auditor's report includes a statement restricting the use of the report to the reporting entity. This framework does not cover any elements of a financial audit or review, which may be covered by relevant financial auditing / review standards, and any other engagement conducted by other auditors of an organization, for example, statutory audit, internal audit, tax audit, will not be under the scope of this framework. Okay. So if you are conducting tax audit, then you need not refer to these social audit standards. Then social audit engagement. So there are 5 elements of a social audit engagement, which are: first is the 3-party relationship involving a social auditor, a responsible party, and intended users. So these are the 3 parties involved. Then social project responsible party will be the person, the social enterprise, which is engaged in creating a social impact, and intended users will be the intended beneficiaries. Then social project / program / intervention scope. Social project monitoring framework, audit evidence, social audit report or social impact assessment report. So these are the 5 elements of social audit engagement. First of all, the parties involved. So there are 3 parties involved. One is the auditor. Second is the social enterprise, which is engaged in creating social impact. And the third party is the intended users. Then second is the social project or program or intervention scope. Third is the social project monitoring framework. Then audit evidence and social audit report or social impact assessment report. So these are the 5 elements of social audit engagement. Three-party relationship. So social audit engagement provides 3 separate parties. First is the social auditor. So social auditor means an individual registered with SRO or such other agency as may be specified by the SEBI, who has qualified a certification program conducted by NISM and hold a certificate. So first party is the auditor. Second is the responsible party. So this responsible party is the person who is responsible for the subject matter. So generally the social enterprise is the responsible party. The responsible party may or may not be the party who engages the social auditor. Engaging party. So engaging party may be different from the responsible party. Suppose government asks you, the state government or central government or an independent agency asks you to undertake social audit. So in that case, and responsible party and engaging party may be different also. And third are the intended users. So intended users are the persons or class of persons for whom the social auditor prepares the social audit report. The responsible party can be one of the intended users, but not the only one. So intended users, they are the person or persons or class of persons for whom the social auditor prepares the social audit report. Now, social project, program, or intervention scope. Social audit engagement helps define the audit scope of the social project or program intervention relating to a thematic areas of the activities conducted by the social project. Social project monitoring framework. Social projects apply the methodology of theory of change when designing social projects. So theory of change methodology maps out how and why a desired change is expected to happen in a particular concept, in a particular context. The social project monitoring framework based on the theory of change model will detail out the inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact. This contributes to social auditors' understanding of the projects and its nuances, identify key evaluation parameters, thematic areas of intervention, and the benefits rendered to the community. So this social project monitoring framework, this is based on the theory of change model, and it details out the inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact. The following parameters are considered to assess the impact or the change occurred due to a project. First is the inclusiveness. So ability of different stakeholders, particularly poorest and most marginalized, to access the benefits of activities, be part of institutions, healthcare, education committees, farmers groups, and have access to shared benefits through the intervention. So the first parameter to assess the impact or the change, positive or negative, is the inclusiveness. Whether the different stakeholders, whether the poorest or the most marginalized were able to take the benefit. So if such is the scenario, then it is considered to be an inclusive approach. So ability of different stakeholders, particularly poorest and most marginalized, to access the benefits of activities and be part of institutions and have access to shared benefits through the intervention. So first parameter is the inclusiveness. Second parameter is relevance. So are the services, inputs, institutions facilitated in the project able to meet community priorities? How was the planning done? Was it participatory? How were the success indicators developed? Was the community involved in development of project indicators? So because we are trying to benefit a particular community, so whether those were involved, or are the services, inputs, or institution facilitated in the project able to meet community priorities? Because you are trying to create a social impact on a particular, say, set of people. So whether those people were able to take the benefit and was it relevant for them? So was the community involved in development of project indicators? You are trying to do something for a particular community, but that community is not involved into it. So there is not much relevance of such a project. So community involvement should be there. and the services, inputs or institutions, they should be able to meet the community priorities. Then effectiveness and efficiency. Have the activities been able to effectively address community expectations? So if the project is completed within the finalized time duration, how efficiently have the resources been deployed, monitored and utilized? If there is a potential to replicate the solution in other states or districts. So what is the effectiveness and efficiency? That is also an important aspect. Next is convergence. Convergence, the degree of convergence with government or other partnerships, a relationship between individuals, community, institutions, and other stakeholders. Next is point is sustainability. So sustainability, do communities feel ownership over the assets created by the activities? And or will the project initiated community intervention sustain even after the exit of the funding agency? Are the institutions strengthened adequately to effectively manage and sustain the activities after the completion of the project? Has an exit strategy been drafted? So whether whatever impact you created, whether it is sustainable, because if your project created certain assets, so do communities feel ownership over the assets created by the activities? Suppose you did a project for enabling poor women, you worked with poor women, that okay, so let us teach them the tailoring skills. You employed machines, but you took those machines back. So in such a situation, the communities will not feel ownership over the assets. So there should be those machines, they should lie with them only. So communities should feel ownership over the assets created by the activities. And or will the project initiated community intervention sustain even after the exit of the funding agency? So once the project is over, so whether it is still sustainable? Are the institutions strengthened adequately for effectively managing and sustaining the activities after the completion of the project? So these are some of the points which you have to see for in the social project monitoring framework. So there should be inclusiveness, there should be relevance, effectiveness and efficiency, convergence and sustainability. Then audit evidence. The social auditor plans and performs a social audit with an attitude of professional skepticism to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence of the implementation of the social program in the field. An attitude of professional skepticism means the social auditor makes a critical assessment with a questioning mind of the validity of evidence obtained and is alert to evidence that contradicts or brings into questions the reliability of documentations or representations by the responsible party. So this is regarding audit evidence. Then social audit report. The social audit report should be in writing and should contain a clear expression of the social auditor's findings. Oral and other forms of expressing conclusions can be misunderstood without the support of a written report. So social audit report has to be written only. For this reason, the social auditor should not report orally. The social audit report should address the social impact aspect covered by the project, program, project-based activity, and the intended users will be interested in. Social auditors should strive to provide audit reports which are not only stakeholder friendly and timely, but also comprehensive, convincing, and balanced. So these are some of the contents of the social audit report. To be comprehensive, the report should put forward the perspective of social impact vis-a-vis meeting the intended social objectives such as eradication of poverty. To be convincing, the report should be logically structured and present a clear relationship between the objective scope, indicators, and findings. The report should explain why and how problems observed in the findings hamper social impact to encourage the social enterprise or the stakeholder to initiate corrective action. So all these points should be taken care in the social audit report. So being balanced. So being balanced means that the audit report should present findings objectively and fairly in an impartial manner, considering different perspectives and viewpoints of the stakeholders. The report should incorporate positive impacts and aspects related to gaps or challenges and avoid any kind of biased language or information. This framework does not require a standardized format for reporting on all social audit engagements. Instead, it identifies the basic elements the social audit report should include. So there is no standardized format actually for reporting for all social audit engagements. So what you have to do is you have to identify the basic elements, you know, which the social audit report should include. Social audit reports may be tailored to the area specific circumstances. The social auditor may use headings, paragraph numbers, typographical devices, for example, the bolding of text, and other mechanisms to enhance the clarity and readability of the report. So a typical social audit report contains some essential elements which are given below. So this is a sample of a social audit report. To appropriate address C, section 1, the context about the project, responsibilities of responsible party and social auditor. Then conformance to framework for social audit standards, then scope of social audit, overall approach. So these are the various contents of, so this is a sample of social audit report. Then social audit scope. So social audit is an independent, objective and reliable examination of impact of a project program, project-based activity of a social enterprise. And a social audit assesses whether the project program, project-based activity is operating in accordance with the stated strategic intent and planning, assesses the performance in terms of impacts, outcomes, suggests ways to improve the impact measurement and or performance by way of a management letter. Social audit scope should include the physical and virtual location, functions, organizational units, activities and processes, as well as the time period covered. Now the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? So stakeholders are individuals or groups of people or organizations that affect or are affected by the activities of the organization. For example, social enterprise or a corporate business. Stakeholder engagement by a social auditor allows the stakeholders to provide information, resources, and their perspective needed for the social audit. The stakeholders may include all or any of the following. So first is the social enterprise, whether for-profit enterprise or NPO. Then beneficiaries, risk investors, impact investors, outcome funder, third-party evaluator. We have seen all these concepts. Intermediaries, regulators, societies, communities, vendors, third-party agencies, government, fund providers, trustees, directors, corporates. So these are the various stakeholders. Then social audit engagement acceptance. A social auditor accepts a social audit engagement when relevant ethical requirements of independence and professional competence are met, and the engagement meets the requirements of integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional behavior, and professional competence and due care. Then written representations. The social auditor should request written representations from management and, where appropriate, those charged with governance on material social audit issues. Although written representations provide necessary audit evidence, they are not sufficient or appropriate by itself. So written representations do not affect the nature or extent of other audit evidence that the social auditor obtains about the fulfillment of management's responsibilities or about specific assertions. Like if we obtain management representation letter, that means that itself may not be sufficient for expressing an opinion. So independent, the formation of opinion is independent of the written representations, but we may make use of it. Then communication with those charged with governance. The objectives of the social auditor's communication with those charged with governance are: first is to communicate clearly with those charged with governance the responsibilities of the social auditor in relation to social audit, and an overview of the planned scope and timing of the social audit. Then to obtain from those charged with governance information relevant to the social audit, to provide those charged with governance with timely observations arising from the social audit that are significant and relevant to project or program, to promote effective to this is some those charged with governance you can understand like management. In business there is management, there are directors. So similar is the situation here. So these are those. Hasoni ji, you were saying something?
Can we say it is a board of directors?
Yes, similar to that. Yes.
Yeah.
So some sort of similar. So communication with those charged with governance, because they are the people who are governing that organization which is doling out the social benefits basically. So to promote effective two-way communication between the social auditor and those charged with governance. Then communicate appropriately to those charged with governance deficiencies in internal control for program implementation management that the auditor has identified during the social audit. The deficiencies observed by the social auditor should be of sufficient importance to merit attention. Then social audit quality control for social auditor or social firm. What is this? It says the social auditor should establish a system of quality control and quality management designed to ensure compliance with professional standards, ethics, regulatory, and legal requirements. A social audit firm should establish policies and procedures designed to promote an internal culture based on the recognition that quality is essential in performing engagement. The quality control policies and procedures should be documented and communicated to the firm's personnel to ensure that the firm and its personnel and engaged experts comply with the relevant ethical requirements. So social audit quality ensures that the social audit reports issued by the social auditor are appropriate in the given circumstances. The social audit forms of quality control should include policies and procedures addressing the following: leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm, ethical requirements, acceptance and continuation of end user relationships, including scope determination, human resources, including engagement of experts, engagement performance, including social audit trail and monitoring. So these are some of the qualities, the social audit forms of quality control. Now,
Sir,
social audit.
this SRO has, actually this SRO have to take the responsibility of quality, right? This audit firms, how they can audit quality, the
Actually-
SRO, this.
No, that is true, but actually SROs will be monitoring. They will be monitoring basically, but on the forefront are the social audit firms only. So they have to ensure quality control. So they have to develop relationship. They have to develop the leadership responsibilities. So they have to ensure that there are ethical requirements. Ethical requirements are fulfilled. So all these things they have to ensure. Human resources, including engagement of experts. So suppose there is a social audit firm and they need to hire some experts. So it is their responsibility. And overall quality check will be done by the SRO, but on the front are the social audit firms only. So they are basically
Okay.
responsible for ensuring this quality control.
Okay.
So social audit planning. The objective of planning for a social audit is to build an understanding of the project, consider a variety of strategies, and decide on the efficient and effective approach to conduct the social audit. The social auditor should establish an overall engagement strategy that sets the scope, timing, and directions of the engagement and that guides the development of the work plan. So this is some sort of audit program. In establishing the overall engagement strategy, the social auditor should identify the characteristics of the engagement that define its audit scope, ascertain the reporting objectives of the engagement, timing of the social audit and assessment, and nature of the communications required. So this is overall audit planning. Then you have to consider the factors that in the social auditor's professional judgment are significant in directing the engagement team's efforts. Consider the results of preliminary engagement activities and apply relevant knowledge gained in other engagements. Then you have to ascertain the nature, timing, extent of resources necessary to perform the engagement. Suppose you've got a social audit engagement. Now you will have to strategize this thing. Okay, what are the characteristics of the engagement? Then you have to ascertain the reporting objectives of the engagement. You have to consider the factors that in the social auditor's professional judgment are significant in directing the engagement team's efforts. So in what sort of team should be deployed? Then you have to consider the results of the preliminary engagement activities. And then you have to apply the relevant knowledge gained in other engagement. You might have undertaken some other engagement, and then you have to apply that knowledge which you gained in other engagements to this particular assignment. And then you have to ascertain the nature, timing, and extent of resources necessary to perform the engagement. Like if we are required to undertake audit, what we do is we plan that, okay, 10 people will be required for this. And what time we will go, what time will come. So all these things are necessary in case of ordinary audits also. So accordingly here also we have to ascertain the nature, timing, and extent of resources. That okay, this social audit engagement is with us. So we'll be requiring say 2 months. And we'll be requiring 10 people for this project. So we have to plan well in advance the nature, timing, and extent of resources. Then include a description of procedures required to be compliant with the social audit standards, like we'll be doing some sort of sample surveys and all those things. Then update the overall engagement strategy and the work plan as and if required during the assignment. So all these things we have to do. So this is the social audit planning. Now is understanding the entity and its environment. The social auditor should conduct a preliminary entity review to understand and the social and cultural environment it operates to establish the primacy of its social intent. This is required for the purpose of identifying and assessing the risks of material misstatements. So you have to understand the entity and the environment also, because if you are working for a social enterprise which is engaged in some tribal area, so you have to understand the entity and the environment also, the cultural environment, the social environment it operates. And this is required for the purpose of identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. Then entity overview is also important. A sample of indicative points for entity overview could include the following. First is the legal identity entity and its intent or objectives, projects and timelines for which the audit is to be carried out, key managerial personnel of the entity, geographical regions in which the entity operates, policies and procedures, governing board or promoter. So these you have to have an overview of the entity which you are going to audit. Then social objectives and impact overview. The social auditor should conduct a preliminary review on the social objective and impact overview of the entity's activities. A sample of indicative points for social objective and impact overview could include the following. First is the stated objectives of the project program, then project monitoring framework, program specific baseline, midline and endline assessment reports, project progress and closure report, program specific fund utilization certificate, and details of vendors and third other parties. So you have to conduct a preliminary review on the social objective and impact overview of the entity's activities. Then social auditor's responses to the assessed risk. So while planning the audit, the social auditor should consider the risk or challenges in implementing the project program, which may be different for different thematic areas. Then field level research agency and our subject matter experts. So it is important to note that the social auditor is primarily responsible for the social audit report, even though he or she may delegate some aspects of the audit work to field level research agency or uses work performed by other social auditors and subject matter experts. Therefore, the social auditor is encouraged to plan necessary procedures to monitor, track, and review the work of the field level research agency and or the subject matter experts. The procedures must be adequate and relevant to the audit process, because you might be engaging, say, some field workers or some other subject matter experts or some other agency, but ultimate responsibility is with you only. So you have to monitor, track, and review their work. The social auditor should consider the significant findings, assessment of the assistants, field level research agency, or other social auditors on the subject matter experts. The social auditor should evaluate whether the subject matter expert has the necessary competence, capabilities, and objectivity for the social auditor's purpose. The social auditor should obtain sufficient understanding of the subject matter to determine the nature, scope, and objectives of that expert's work, and thus evaluate the adequacy of that work for the social audit, because that expert is also working under your guidance basically, and you are responsible for issuing a final opinion. The social auditor should have an agreement with the subject matter on the following matters. First is the nature, scope, and objective of that expert's work, the respective roles and responsibilities of the social auditor. Suppose you engage a valuer. In case of a normal audit assignment, you engage a valuer, but the ultimate responsibility lies with you only, and you as an auditor, you specify the work of that expert. So similarly, the situation here, you are engaging some subject matter expert, you are engaging some field agency, but you have to keep a watch. So what you have to specify? The nature, scope, and objectives of that expert's work, the respective roles and responsibilities of the social auditor and the subject matter expert. Like if you, in case of normal audit, you engage an actuarial valuer. Actuarial valuer will give its report, but you have to specify the scope, nature, scope, and objective of that expert's work. the respective roles and responsibilities of the social auditor and the subject matter expert. So if you relate these things to the financial audit, then you will be able to better understand this thing. The communication type, format, and frequency between the social auditor and the subject matter. Then non-disclosure agreement with the subject matter. The relevance and reasonableness of the subject matter experts' findings or conclusions and their consistency with other audit evidence. Relevance and reasonableness of the assumptions used by the subject matter in the given circumstances. Relevance, completeness, and accuracy of the source data used by the subject matter expert. The social auditor should not refer to the work of a subject matter expert in social audit report unless required by law or regulation. Actually, he cannot hide himself behind another subject matter expert. So the subject matter expert services should be obtained only when it is required by law or regulation. If such reference is required by law or regulation, the social auditor should indicate in the social audit report that the reference does not reduce the social auditor's responsibility for the social audit. So ultimately, the responsibility will lie with the social auditor only. Then documentation. The social auditor should prepare on a timely basis engagement documentation that provides a record for the social audit report that is sufficient and appropriate to understand. So there has to be proper documentation also. The social auditor should prepare on a timely basis engagement documentation that provides a record for the social audit report that is sufficient and appropriate to understand the nature, timing, and extent of the procedures performed to comply with this framework, the results of the procedures performed and the evidence obtained, and significant issues observed during the engagement and the recommendations for improvement in the future. The social auditor should assemble the engagement documentation in an engagement file, like we prepare an audit file. So similarly, he is talking of an engagement file. So whether maintained in hard copy or soft copy, he or she should complete the administrative process of assembling the final engagement file on a timely basis, usually not more than 60 days after the date of the social audit report. After the assembly of the final engagement file has been completed, the social auditor should not delete or discard engagement documentation of any nature before the end of its retention period, because there might be a retention policy that he may be required to retain records for, say, 5 years, 8 years, as in Companies Act, or in case of this IBC. So similar could be the retention policy here, and he should not delete or discard the engagement documentation before the end of its retention period. So the first point in documentation is that he has to prepare proper records as per the retention policy. Second is the materiality. He has to identify the material issues when assessing impact. Third is the internal controls. We'll review it again tomorrow. Third is the internal controls, but let us quickly go through this and we will review it again tomorrow. Then field work process, sampling and data collection. So social audit engagement should consider the following while planning the field work for sampling and data collection. So there is need for assessments obtaining program, project understanding, sample size is also important. Then you have to determine the sample size. So determining sample size, how you will determine? It will depend upon the type of universe. It will depend upon the sampling unit, sample size, then sampling methodology. And data collection is there. Then data collection sources are of two types, primary source and secondary source. Then data collection methods are there. So these are the various data collection methods. Observation is there. Then interview through interviews. Interviews could be structured interviews, they could be unstructured interviews. Then focused group discussion. So data collection can be through online surveys, virtual interviews, satellite imagery for monitoring. Then data quality. So you have to check the data quality also regarding its validity, reliability, completeness, integrity, and timeliness. Then data analysis and interpreting results. Then you have to interpret the results based on the data you have obtained. and then use of technology in social audit. So these are the things you have to use. So this is basically how social audit has to be conducted. So we will continue tomorrow with chapter 6 and then we'll move on to chapter 7.
Yes.
Chapter 7 is on social impact assessment. Because chapter 6 and 7 and thereafter then case studies will come in chapter 8. Regarding social audit standards also, because there are 16 social audit standards. So what I've done is I have compressed those 16 social audit standards into 4 PPTs, each containing 4 social audit standards. So 100 to 400 I've made one PPT, 500 to 800 another. So I'll show you that also. I think it is available with me. So let me show you before we end this session. I think I've already shared it with you, right?
आपने दिखाया था शुरू में.
No,
दिखाया था?
no.
अच्छा. एक्चुअली मेरा भी क्या है, कुछ डेटा लैपटॉप में रहता है, कुछ रहता है वहां ऑफिस में. ये है मेरे पास. ये देखिए, जैसे 500 to 800 मैं बताता हूँ. बारिश हो रही है बहुत तेज बाहर. तो ये देखिए, ये हमने क्या किया इसमें ना, जैसे 500 to 800 ये हमने मर्ज कर दिए. तो ये मर्ज दिस 4, ये इस तरह से, क्योंकि ऑलमोस्ट सेम है. आप ये देखोगे ना, इनको पढ़ोगे, देखो सेम सा लगेगा आपको. सिर्फ उन्होंने क्या किया, नाम चेंज कर दिया उसके अंदर कि भाई पहला रामलाल है, दूसरा श्यामलाल है, तीसरा ये है. भाई पॉवर्टी है तो पॉवर्टी से रिलेटेड पॉइंट्स डाल दिए. टेक्निक सेम है. तो इस तरह से अगर आप इनको ऐसे पढ़ोगे ना तो जल्दी क्योंकि 16 इट वाज नॉट पॉसिबल टू कंप्रेस ऑल दिस इनटू 1. तो मैंने क्या किया, इसको आई हैव डिवाइडेड इनटू 4 पार्ट्स. लेकिन आप इनको एक बार पढ़ोगे ना और आप अपनी मार्किंग कर लोगे तो इट विल बी वेरी इजी फॉर यू टू अंडरस्टैंड. इस तरह देखो, आप डायरेक्ट बेनिफिशियरी यहाँ पर भी है, डायरेक्ट बेनिफिशियरी यहाँ, डायरेक्ट स्टेक होल्डर्स आ गया. थोड़ा बहुत चेंज हो गया बट ऑलमोस्ट सेम सा चलेगा आपका सारा सभी में.
आप ये ग्रुप में डाल रहे हो सर?
हाँ डाल देता हूँ, अभी डाल दूंगा. और क्या, ये तो आप ही के लिए तो बनाया मैंने. और क्या
सर ये आपने कंप्लीट लिख
सर।
रखे हैं या सिर्फ कंपाइल किए हुए हैं?
क्या
ये स्टैंडर्ड्स पूरे लिख रखे हैं या सिर्फ कंपाइल किए हुए हैं आपके?
पूरे.
ओके सर.
हाँ, ये 4 कर दिए ना
Sir, it
इसमें.
means,
हैं?
sir, it means there is no specific question will be in the examination specific to a standard. It are only general things only asking in the examination.
नो बट ऐसा ना, इफ यू गो थ्रू दी स्टैंडर्ड्स थोड़ा सा हेल्प करेगा आपको. ये बात है बेसिकली. तो
Okay.
एक ओवरऑल व्यू, एक ओवरव्यू तो लेना ही चाहिए, पढ़ना तो चाहिए ही ना स्टैंडर्ड्स को भी. एक बार पढ़ना तो बनता है.
हाँ सर.
ये इस तरह से हमने ना इसको चैप्टर वाइज कर दिया. जैसे ये की मैट्रिक्स कर दिए. अब एक बार आप पढ़ लोगे ना इसको, देखो आप देखो लगे आपको, देखो लगेगा इवेल्युएशन ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट प्रोग्राम, यहाँ पर भी इवेल्युएशन ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट प्रोग्राम. तो आपको देखो ऐसा लगेगा कि सेम सी बातें हैं सभी में.
बस चैलेंज ये है कि वो याद करना पड़ेगा कि 500 में क्या है, 600 में क्या है, 700 में
तो
क्या है, 800 में क्या है.
Yeah,
ऐसा
yeah,
है ना,
that
ऐसा
will
है.
be asked. Yeah.
वो जो डिफरेंस है ना, वो डिफरेंस को ही आपको हाईलाइट कर लेना. बाकी तो सेम सी कहानी है.
नहीं,
यार,
ऐसा भी तो आ सकता है ना, वो बोले हैं कि कौन सा स्टैंडर्ड में ये कवर होता है, तो हमें याद करना पड़ेगा 500 है, 600 है, 700 है, 800 है, 300 है.
भाई वो 16 के लिए तो फिर हम एक स्टोरी बना देंगे, एक नेमोनिक बना देंगे 16 के लिए. 16 को याद करने, वो तो हम
हाँ,
बना ही
वो-
देंगे.
वो
हाँ,
बना दो ताकि हमें याद हो जाए.
वो तो याद हो जाएगा, वो तो याद हो जाएगा. जैसे एक पहले का तो बना ही दिया हमने, MI फोन, ऐसे ही सबका बना देंगे. वो एक ही स्टोरी बना देंगे पूरे की.
हाँ, पूरे की
Okay,
एक ही
okay, that
बना
will
दो,
be
एक
good.
ही line.
हैं?
हाँ, ताकि याद हो जाए, एक ही
हाँ.
लाइन में सब कुछ आ जाए.
एक ही लाइन में आ जाएगा, सब आ जाएगा. हाँ.
हाँ.
अब ये देखो इस तरह से, ये सारा क्वांटिटेटिव क्राइटेरिया देखो ना, सबका ऑलमोस्ट सेम सा है. तो जब आप इनको पढ़ोगे ना सारों को मिला करके तो जल्दी समझ में आ जाएगा.
अच्छे लग रहे हैं ये काफी.
हाँ
15 नंबर का है ये सारा. 15
हाँ.
ये ना, दोनों
हाँ
चैप्टर
जी.
25.
हाँ. तो ये सारे ऐसे बना दिए हमने. तो 4 करके. अब 16 तो बनाना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता, वो समझ में नहीं आता फिर कुछ, तो इसलिए हमने क्या किया, 4 बना दिए। और एक और खास बात बता दूं आपको कि ये जो 16 के 16 है ना, ये इसमें केस स्टडीज में इन्वॉल्व नहीं है। ये भी एक बात है, केस स्टडीज में जो है वो थोड़े से 4-5 ही है इसमें से, सारे 16 यू आर नॉट रिक्वायर्ड टू स्टडी फॉर दैट केस स्टडी, क्योंकि
हाँ, वो
आपको
भी
देखो,
आपने बताया।
आपको देखो
हाँ,
5,
या सिलेक्टेड वाले।
हाँ आपको तो एक 500 पढ़ना है,
हम्म,
ठीक है, 500 के बाद एक 200 पढ़ना है,
हम्म,
400 है, और एक है आपका 1300। तो 5, 2, 4, 13, और एक और होगा, चाहे 1600 होगा, एक आपका है 1100।
सर ये कहाँ पे स्पेसिफाई किया हुआ है कि ये 5 ही होंगे?
ये चैप्टर 8 में
नहीं, ये केस स्टडीज में सिर्फ ये 5 ही कवर होंगे?
ये लिखा हुआ है ना इसके अंदर,
ओ, कहाँ पे?
तो यही है 5, 2, 4, 13 और 11। एक बार हम क्या करेंगे, इसका ना पांचों का एक इकट्ठा भी बनवा देंगे, ऐसा ही जैसे ये बना रखा है। अब पांचों का बनाना तो बहुत आसान है, मैं लड़के को बोल दूंगा भाई पांचों का इकट्ठा बना दो एक, इनका 5, 2, 4, 13, 11। एक तो ये हो गया आपका 16 के 16 आपके सारे यहाँ कंपेरेटिव आ गए इन 4 पीपीटीज, ठीक है। ईच पीपीटी कंटेन्स 4 सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स। एक तो ये हो गया। व्हाट इज द आइडिया? द आइडिया वाज दैट दे आर मोर और लेस सिमिलर, ठीक है ना। अब जैसे एक में भाई पहले कहानी शुरू होती है, रामलाल बाजार गया, दूसरे में श्यामलाल बाजार गया, बाजार तो 4 हो गए, ठीक है ना। इस तरह से अब वो एक डिपेंड करेगा कि कौन सा सोशल ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड है। वो पॉवर्टी से रिलेटेड है तो पॉवर्टी से रिलेटेड वो काम करेगा उसमें, एम्प्लॉयमेंट से रिलेटेड है तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट से, बट वो ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर सिचुएशंस है। वो जब आप पढ़ोगे तो समझ में आ जाएगा। तो इस तरह से हमने इसको कर दिया है, और ये बड़ा, ये मैं सारा शेयर कर दूंगा आपके साथ जब हमारा एक,
बेसिकली हेडिंग्स लर्न कर लेंगे तो उससे भी काफी बेनिफिट हो जाएगा।
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। और एडिंग क्या, हम आपको तरीका बता देंगे ना भाई, इस तरह से याद करना है आपको। देखो ऐसा है, हमारा पर्पज सिर्फ एग्जाम पास करना ही नहीं है, हमारा पर्पज ये भी है कि भाई नॉलेज भी हो ऑडिट स्टैंडर्ड्स की, दैट इज आल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट। कल को कोई ऑडिट करना पड़े तो कर भी तो सके ना।
कर पाए, हाँ, राइट राइट।
बहुत सारे पे क्या होता है, एग्जाम पास करना तो आप एग्जाम तो आज पास कर जाओगे, है क्या, इसमें इतना मुश्किल नहीं है। बट अब बात यह है कि बहुत सारी चीजें तो अभी आनी बाकी हैं, अभी तो ये इम्प्लीमेंट ही नहीं हुए।
सही बात है।
हाँ। तो वो तो ये, इस ग्रुप का पर्पस क्या है, ग्रुप में जुड़ने का पर्पस ये है कि भाई आगे भी हमें भी कोई काम मिलजुल के भी करना हो तो कर सकें भाई, ठीक है। कोई कलकत्ता का काम आ गया, भाई सारिका जॉइन कर लेगी, इस तरह से। तो दैट इज ऑल्सो द आइडिया, बेसिकली पर्पस ये
बिल्कुल
रहता है। हाँ।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
क्योंकि डिफरेंट स्टेट से जुड़े हुए हैं, अब चाको जी केरला से जुड़े हुए हैं, केरला का कोई आ जाएगा एनजीओ तो हम चाको जी को देंगे और किसको देंगे
सही बात
भाई हमारे फोन में तो यही सब रहता है कि कौन इलाहाबाद का कौन है, कलकत्ता का कौन है, इस तरह से।
सर हमें आईपी का तो एक भी असाइनमेंट ना मिला, आईपी तो बेकार ही हो गया करना।
नहीं बेकार नहीं हुआ मैडम, पता क्या है, देखो ऐसे है
इतनी
अभी।
मेहनत करी सर, 50-50 घंटे की पढ़ाई करी, क्या फायदा?
लेकिन एक बात बता दूं, देखो ऐसे है, कई लोग ऐसे हैं बहुत अच्छा कमा रहे हैं उसमें भी, ऐसी बात नहीं है भाई। आप सक्सेस स्टोरीज देखो ना, कई लोग तो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, वो ये है कि 3-4 लोग मिल गए तो वो काम कर रहे हैं, अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं।
असाइनमेंट ही नहीं, क्योंकि हमें तो बोर्ड से भी, हमने तुमने आपको पहले करवाया था एनरोल, एक
नहीं
भी असाइनमेंट।
एकदम से तो नहीं मिलता ना मैडम। देखो आप किसी भी प्रोफेशन में जाओ, एक डॉक्टर भी एक दुकान खोलता है तो डॉक्टर की दुकान पे पहले दिन तो कस्टमर की भीड़ नहीं लग जाती ना। वही चीज है ये, आप समझो कि यू आर एंटरिंग ए न्यू प्रोफेशन, तो न्यू प्रोफेशन में थोड़ा जेस्टेशन पीरियड तो रहता ही है ना। और फिर उसमें उसमें भी क्या होता है कि जैसे 2-4 लोग मिल जाते हैं तो वो काम कर लेते हैं, फिर ये भी बात है। और ऐसा नहीं
हाँ
है,
ये,
ये जो इंसॉल्वेंसी वाला प्रोफेशन भी है, जब ये पार्टनरशिप फर्म्स और इंडिविजुअल्स भी जब आ जाएगी ना इसमें, इंडिया में देखो नॉन कॉर्पोरेट फॉर्म में भी तो बहुत काम हो रहा है ना
हाँ
अभी।
अगर इंडिविजुअल इंसॉल्वेंसी हो गई तब काम पड़ेगा हम लोगों के
आएंगे
लिए।
आएंगे पक्का आएंगे, क्यों नहीं आएंगे, इंडिविजुअल वो आना ही है, इसी में आना अल्टीमेटली। तो अभी तो
हाँ
गवर्नमेंट क्या है, गवर्नमेंट भी देख रही है भाई क्या होता है, कुछ लोग इस सिस्टम का भी एडवांटेज लेते हैं, कुछ आईबीसी का भी तो बहुत फायदा उठाया लोगों ने। लोगों ने सोचा कि गवर्नमेंट के ड्यूज तो कुछ देने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, तो जिनके भी गवर्नमेंट ड्यूज थे उन्होंने जबरदस्ती अपने ऑपरेशनल क्रेडिटर करके अपने अगेंस्ट ही आईबीसी की पिटीशंस फाइल करवा दी कि भैया ले लो, हमारी
हाँ,
कंपनी में तो कुछ है ही नहीं। ये चक्कर है, इस
हाँ।
तरह से भी लोगों ने बहुत इसका गलत फायदा उठाया।
हम्म।
तो लोगों ने करोड़ों कमाए, कईयों ने, इसमें ऐसी बात नहीं है, वो चीज है। और बहुत सारे लोगों ने तो उसको एज ए प्लानिंग टूल यूज किया। एनीवे, ठीक है जी, तो कल मिलते हैं फिर।
ओके सर।
Okay, sir. Thank you.